Welcome back to another episode of Breathe More. I love having conversations with my clients and introducing them to you. Today we have Carina, who's an incredibly gifted healer. But when we started working together, Carina, was it 2 years ago or is it longer than 2 years?
I feel like it was a little longer than 2 years,
Yeah,
slightly over two.
yeah. But you were in such a different place when you joined the Dream Bigger Mastermind a little bit over 2 years ago to where you are today. And Karina, she's like the epitome of my dream client. She's really powerful. I feel like you have clarity on how you want your life to look like. But then there's some programming or a little bit of doubt or some contraction that happens that on your own makes it a little bit more challenging to have the follow through and to go through. But during the times that you've been in the mastermind, because she's an alumni, she's done it twice now.
Yeah.
And during that time, there's just accelerated growth. So let's go back in time to a little bit over 2 years ago when Carina joined. We had a really intimate mastermind that round. And at the time, you were working, you had a 9 to 5, working
Yes.
as a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
And it was a really toxic work environment. If I remember correctly, it was just draining your energy, but it was something that you had been doing for a long time. You were
Yeah.
in your comfort zone. And also, you're a single mom. You have really big responsibilities to take care of your child. You also have a lot of responsibilities with your parents, which is very traditional, being like first generation and daughter of immigrants. So, can you go back to that time? Do you remember where you were at and how you were feeling and what inspired you to join Mastermind at the time?
Yes, absolutely. It's that area, that time period, it was so definitive for where I am right now that it's crazy to think back on how quickly it felt like it just catapulted and changed completely. Because you're right, I was in my 9 to 5 and that was my dream job. I remember almost 10 years back before that, I manifested that job. That was my dream environment. Everything was exactly as I penned it out, down to the pay and the treatment, the feeling, the family feeling of it. That was my dream job. And so when it became toxic, it was very hard for me first to identify that I had become toxic and that it was no longer where I wanted to remain. But that push, that final decision to say, okay, I got to leave, even though I knew that I had to leave. Because as we were going through all the changes that everyone went through with the pandemic, I knew that I was leaving. I knew that I wasn't going to stay. But even though I knew it and I was clear, because I've always had that kind of clarity, it was so hard. Because you're right. I was a single parent and I had my parents with me. I had so much on my shoulders that I couldn't just up and say, you know what, bye. And I didn't even know what the first steps were. So when I joined Mastermind, what led me to making the decision to join Mastermind was exactly that I didn't know how to put that together. Like I knew that I was leaving, I know that I had to leave, and I had an inkling that it had to involve healing, but I wasn't ready to call myself a healer yet. That was part of the magic of Mastermind. That's what really came out of that first Mastermind, that I came out with my acceptance of I'm a healer.
Thank you so much for sharing that you manifested that 9 to 5 job. Like you were at your dream job. And you're someone who does a lot of personal development work and you're actively increasing your capacity to receive and your dreams. And so that does happen as well, that I feel like not a lot of people talk about, whether it's a job that at some point you were so grateful to have and you were so happy, or a relationship or a friendship. But it is also normal for us to outgrow
Yeah.
what we already manifested. And I have found, I know even for myself, when I was working as an actress, like that was a big thing that I wanted, right? To be in commercials and to be known in the community and be someone that casting directors called. They knew my work, they recommended me, but then it got to a point where I outgrew that. And it took me a
Mhm.
little too long to also completely accept, just because for so long, that was such a big part of my identity and a big dream that I manifested. Ending that completely doesn't mean that I'm not grateful or that I'm abandoning it, or it just ran its course and we got what we needed to get from it. And it's actually a disservice, not just to ourselves, but to that job or that relationship that we've outgrown, if we just continue to hang in there because we know what to expect, because they know us so well, because of our guilt. And it does take courage. You called it right. Clarity is step number one.
Yeah.
And listening to that inner voice and acknowledging it. I'm not happy here anymore. I've outgrown this. It's time for a change. And then once you have that clarity, then deciding, okay, what's the next step?
Yeah.
Maybe right now I'm not fully comfortable to immediately just like quit, but what can I do to get myself more comfortable to take that drastic action? And that's something that in a container like the Dream Bigger Mastermind, we do, where we do the healing, the mindset work, where we help to come up with an action plan. So it's not so jarring for your nervous system and you go into panic or scarcity. And rather, we're starting to build on it. Okay, what's the exit plan? Sometimes it does require, like, all right, you're done. You've done the work.
Yeah.
But with you, is a little bit slower, but not that much slower. Like, basically, once you shared with the group that, oh, yeah, I've been doing healings on the side. It's just something I don't talk about. I'm like, wait, what? Who are you? This whole time
Right.
I knew you as a bookkeeper and you have gifts. I want to know. I want to experience these gifts. And that's how it happened.
Yeah.
Giving voice to our dreams is also such a huge act of courage, because a lot of times within our community or our group of friends or our family members, they project their fears and their scarcity mentality onto us. So we might quickly learn it's not really safe for me to share it. Or maybe you did share it and they're like, no, that's a bad idea. You should stay at your job. You know how much money you're going to get. And so I want to celebrate you for sharing it with our group. And then from there, just allowing things to unfold in such a beautiful way.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for creating that space, because I think one of the things that I valued most about being in the mastermind was the community that you created, because it's not just you talking, it's really everybody sharing. And I think that that is something that we, as not just as immigrants or as women, just as human beings, we're so disconnected from that sense of community. And oftentimes we misalign it with people that we know of that we're not necessarily in alignment with. And that's where we find a little bit of toxicity. And you really curated that space for us to feel free and for us to feel safe to really share and to grow. So I value that. And I thank you for that, because that's not something that you find easily.
Thank you, Carina. Appreciate that. So in the first round of Mastermind, you acknowledged my job is toxic. I'm not happy here anymore. This has to end. I'm also accepting that I have a gift that
Yeah.
can help a lot more people. And I might feel a little nervous to announce it and talk about it. But there's this deeper call within me that's telling me, Carina, go, do it. And so you did it. You quit your job while you were in Mastermind.
Yeah.
And then all these other opportunities started to come your way. So I'm the type of person as well who, in my own personal life, I take calculated risks.
Yeah.
And that's how I encourage my clients to do the same. Because again, I don't want your nervous system or mind to go to the place of panicking and then having all of your trauma responses activated. So we eased into it. You quit the toxic job, but you got some freelance clients with the bookkeeping that allowed you to have a base of income as you started to build your healing practice. And that felt like a really beautiful transition for you to help you relieve some of that financial stress and pressure and do something that you're already really good at, that's super easy for you. And so allowing you to have more capacity because you weren't in that toxic energy anymore that was just draining you so that you can apply it into your healing business.
Yeah.
You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to say that I did have some savings. I wasn't fully just I think it would have been harder for me if I didn't have a financial backing for myself. And I tried not to rely on them. But once I made the decision, it was easier because that was there. And then the bookkeeping clients really just came in alignment. Because even though that was bookkeeping, most of what I do with the few bookkeeping clients that I have is really a lot of like emotional support, which is very interesting. And I love how it just aligned because it's not just the bookkeeping, it's about those personal relationships. And then as far as the healing, you're right. I was doing a little bit of healing on the side and keeping it really hush. But it felt like the more that I tried to keep it quiet, the more that it was pushing to get out. And so by the time that I put in my 2 or 3 week notice, I already had clients waiting to book me. And I feel like that was more to support my nervous system because in my spirit, I knew that they were there. But it's hard for your body to make that adjustment at first. And I think that's really important to highlight that your body's still going through the shock. And so, like you were saying, you don't want to re-traumatize anyone. You don't want to have clients go into that state of mind, but you do go through it. And what you do is you supported me through that period. And that was really important for me because it was more of, yes, okay, they are coming. See, they are coming. They are here. And again, it was something that my spirit knew, but you really were able to walk me through that for my body. And I really appreciate that because that definitely happened.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you the credit as well because I'm just a mirror for all of you, right? I am able to call you out with love and compassion, but maybe a little tough love when I see you contract, when I see the trauma responses activated. I help you come up with the reframes and with the list of evidence so that any contraction or fear or doubt that's coming through as you're going through the transition, like you have something to look at. And so that's what we did too. But when you decided, when you put in that notice, as you were recalling the story right now, I also just felt like your body relaxing into it.
Yeah.
And that energetic shift as well is what called in those healing clients.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times that's a big part of the work. It's just making a decision and committing to that decision and having follow through. Because when you're in a state of, I don't know, maybe I want to, but all this other stuff is happening right now isn't the right time. That is so much energy that you're wasting in the indecision, in the fear. And as scary as it is to just say yes and to do it, the amount of energy that's required is actually a lot less.
Yeah.
And that was reflected back to you.
Yes.
And right away, you started to have your group sessions and your private clients and all of that. So I want to talk about the work that you do because you are very specialized. There's so much that you do. I don't want to. But the way that I see you and my go-to for you is the ancestral healing stuff. And it's such powerful, potent medicine that I don't know a lot of people doing it. And so Carina has been a guest healer and expert a couple times now, also in the collective where she guides people through workshops. And we just had one right now. If you're not in the collective, I encourage you to look into it because We have a library of masterclasses, including Carina's workshops. But what I love about how you hold space in these powerful, transformative healing sessions is that I feel like a lot of times when we hear about our ancestors, there's this heaviness attached to it. There's this like pain and disempowerment, but that's not how you present it. It's like our ancestors are actually strong, powerful. We inherited a lot of gifts. Yes, we're not denying that there's trauma that's passed on, but you don't just focus on that. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate the way that you hold space. So for those of you listening and maybe you're wondering, what's ancestral healing? Can you share what it is and how it's beneficial and helpful for people?
Absolutely. Yes. So ancestral healing is the practice of identifying that you want to be this living nexus to the ancestors that left with unhealed trauma. And so you become this vehicle for them to be able to heal. And oftentimes that's beneficial because you're already experiencing that same trauma. It's ancestral trauma. It affects you. And it's usually showing up as the little things that you know in your head that you've already processed, you've already done this, how to move past it, but you just can't. That's usually like the first indication of ancestral trauma within you. And then oftentimes it's more of like those repetitive patterns, the being a single mother generation after generation, and it shows up in the body as the physical representation of trauma. So those are just a few signs, but oftentimes when we come into this present life that we're into, we already come with the pre-agreement or a contracted notion with those ancestors that, hey, if in life I come across this, I have the opportunity and I wish to help heal us all because you're healing for everyone. You're not just healing for the ancestors, you're healing for yourself and you're healing for future generations. And so that's where the strength comes in. That is where the empowerment is acknowledged. When you acknowledge that you have the ability that for you to say, yes, I want to do this healing, you're automatically empowered because you pull on all of the strength that the other side of your ancestry has and you access it. Because when you do ancestral healing, you will never be asked to go at it alone. And you will never just be sitting in space or in time with the ancestors that need the healing. You'll also sit with the ancestors that have the answers for you. And so it's like you're going into a circle with all of your ancestors and you're drawing the strength to heal the wounds. And then you come together. And so it's this beautiful synergy that you are creating because you said yes, because you knew that you had the strength within you and you acknowledged it. And that's where everything comes in. And once you do that, it's like you begin to see the shifts, not just in yourself, but then in your family. And I think for me, that was one of the biggest pulls because when I stumbled into my healing abilities, it was because I was looking for answers for my mom. I couldn't see her struggling the way that she was struggling. And I knew that once the conventional medicine wasn't giving her answers, I knew that there were other answers that we needed to seek. And when I was able to tap into that ancestral healing, I thought it was just for my mom, but it never hits just one person. It really activated everyone in the family. And so that, I think to me, is the biggest takeaway is that you affect everyone. You affect yourself and you affect everyone in your family. And then the future generations get to come in with a clean slate. They don't have to deal with the same repetitive wounds, the same patterns. They get a clean slate. And I'm a mother. And so for me to know that my child won't have to bear those scars, that they just get to have that strength is invaluable. So,
What a beautiful gift to give your children and to give your current family members and yourself. And yeah, it's healing work, whether you focus in the ancestral or you just focus on yourself. I always tell people like it has a ripple effect. How you show up differently at your workplace, that's going to create a different interaction with your coworker, with your manager. And so it requires you taking the initial step and acknowledging, okay, there is something here that just isn't supporting me anymore. It's creating conflict. What can I do to change that? And you're someone that guides people through that transformation. I'm so grateful for the work that you do. And thank you for that. So, second round of mastermind
Yeah.
was you joined in the spring of
Yeah.
this year. And so I felt like the second round, you were in a place where you wanted like more mentorship for your business. And okay, I've been doing these one-off sessions, but how do I make it more sustainable? And so we went in through creating basically like an action plan for you and coming up with different offerings and just helping you with the marketing and all of that, but also helping you when you would tell yourself, I don't know, I need to look at the numbers before I do that. Or I'm not sure about that. And at this point, I'm like, Carina, no, you don't. Like, I'm telling you, fine, look at the numbers if that's what your brain needs. But deep down inside, like you investing in this for your business is going to create more abundance. It's going to create just like the space that you need so that you can just work in your magic and not worry about or let what the stuff that you don't love to do drain you and create the resistance and blocks around that, because that happens a lot of times too. I see in soulful entrepreneurs where there's just a lot that we have to do, right? When we're a small business and there's some stuff that's, I don't know how to do it or I don't like it. And then that just creates the procrastination and all of that. So I saw that was like the biggest shifts that you were making this year in this mastermind, but then also in the personal life too, right?
Yeah.
Where you identified, hey, I'm in a toxic relationship. This isn't supporting me anymore. And the beautiful thing about being in a group like Mastermind is that you always have a mirror in the group. There's always someone else that is going through something so similar. It's a little trippy sometimes. And so that creates like this bond and courage within the group of like, okay, you're going through this. I'm going through this. Let's do it together. And that's what ended up happening where two people from the group decided, hey, I'm in a relationship. It's not right for me. And I need to let that go, even though I'm afraid and worried and I don't want to hurt people's feelings. And that's what you did. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah. So that was very, again, going back to that sense of the community that you create. I had this mirror in the group where I couldn't, I didn't have the luxury of hiding from myself. Really, that's what that was, because I saw her as she was going through her own relationship. And as she was saying the things that I was feeling, I was like, oh, this isn't something that I would let my best friend go through. So why am I going through this? Why is it okay for me to accept this in my relationship? And I couldn't. So I took a stand and I took that step forward of speaking up and then ultimately deciding that no, that's not what I wanted. And then going through the process of releasing that relationship was also very powerful. And to get to share that in the group for this other person too was so empowering. And then, like, right afterwards, I had the person that I fell in love with come through like right away. It was crazy the way that the energy just shifted completely once I took a stand for myself. And that's often hard for us healers to do the things that we tell our clients to do. And I think for me, that's what happened. I walked the walk.
yeah,
And as soon as I did, the right person walked in because I was ready. I was finally ready. And now he's here. And it's this beautiful relationship that I wouldn't have allowed to come in had I not stood up for myself. So, yeah, that was huge.
I am so happy for you. We manifested love. Yay.
Yes.
Another example, adding that to your list of evidence for your brain that once you honored your truth and you made the decision and you took action, your whole life just opened up to what you truly desired. And you allowed yourself to receive it, because that's another part that a lot of people sometimes get tripped up on, where they declare, this is what I want, but then they manifest it. And we saw that in our group too. They manifested and then they start to take action to sabotage, or they present it in a way where it's, no, that's not really what I wanted. This person is boring. Or it's like, oh, they're too needy. And girlfriend, this is like the healthy, kind partner that you've been asking for. And so you leaned into that too, and you acknowledged right away, this is what I've been manifesting. And I know that I'm deserving of receiving that. I know that I am ready to be in true partnership and to allow myself to be vulnerable and to have this beautiful connection and create a life with someone. And so congratulations on letting yourself receive and being clear with the intention and taking the difficult actions that's also required to make space for
Yeah.
what we truly want in our life today.
Yes.
So
Thank
much
you.
courage.
Thank
Yay.
you.
I love it.
Thank
All
you.
right. So any other like last shares that you want to share around mastermind or the transformations that you've seen in yourself?
I think that for me, mastermind was really that space where I could go in and just focus on me, because in many of my other spaces, I was holding space for others. And so even within my family and my friend group, I serve that role of caretaker, caregiver. And so for me, having that space where I could be held, that's what Mastermind provided. And yes, the accountability was also important, but it was just the feeling safe enough to give over that piece where I could feel safe enough that you could hold me accountable and not be judged. That was a big part. So I thank you. Thank you for that.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, where a lot of women, a lot of mothers, a lot of adult children, you all have really busy lives. There's always people demanding of your energy, of your time, of you. And it's so easy to get lost in that and to almost make it feel like, well, that's my purpose, just to take care of everyone else. But I tend to work with a lot of single moms, actually, or just parents, and who also have their jobs and they're very busy. And I really admire and applaud when you all decide, no, you know what? I am deserving of my own time, where for 90 minutes every week, I get to talk about myself, my feelings, my problems, my desires, and not feel bad about it. And that is very important too. And when you do that, it also inspires your kids. I just feel like you're giving such a beautiful example that you can still love and be very involved in people's life and be helpful. But when you make yourself a priority and when you dedicate time for yourself, your whole energy shifts. The way you're able to interact with them or connect with them is different. There isn't so much of, and I'm not as implying that you had any resentment, but sometimes there can be some resentment of, I'm so busy with this and that, and I have no time for myself. I'm tired. I just want to take a break. I just want to do that. But I can't.
Yeah.
But you always can. You just have to decide it. And everything else opens up. And so, Carina, I celebrate you for continuously dedicating time to yourself, to your dreams, to your well-being, to your growth, because that has allowed you to be that much more like a powerful leader within your community and in your family, and such a beautiful example to your child on what it is to love yourself and to allow your dreams to come to fruition. So felicidades on that. Congratulations. So
Yeah.
wonderful. So for those of you who are like, okay, I want to work with Carina, what is she offering? You have a workshop coming up, right?
Yes. Well, it's a group healing. It's an ancestral group healing. And I don't often have ancestral group healings just because of how heavy the energy can be. But this is a very special one because this is specifically for El Día de los Muertos, which is when we, in our heritage, in our culture, welcome in our ancestors. It's like we have a specific day to welcome our ancestors. How could we not honor them on that day? And so last year, a little bit on the history of why I'm offering this is because last year I went to a conference, and the conference was being held on what I refer to as protected land by our shared ancestors. And when I was doing one of the meditations, they came through with a very specific message to heal a very specific wound. And so I offered that as a group healing on last year, El Día de los Muertos. And it was such a beautiful healing that I feel really compelled to continue to honor those ancestors that came through and continue to welcome in the healing energy that just comes through when they show up and when we show up for them. And so that's what this particular offering is for ancestral group healing.
Powerful. We're going to have the sign up for that in the show notes. So if you're interested, make sure you click on the show notes to sign up for that workshop. And we'll have all of her other contact information as well. So you can follow her on social media and just reach out if this episode resonated with all of you. Carina, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and just being a source of inspiration for folks who maybe are feeling stuck right now or nervous. They are connected with that inner voice that's nudging them, that's guiding them and telling them it's time for a change. But maybe their unconscious mind is feeling very afraid and maybe doubting. I invite all of you to use Carina as an example of the beautiful things that can come into your life when you surrender, when you make a decision, when you let go, and when you ask for help and make you and your dreams a priority. So thank you, Carina, for the inspiration.
Gracias. Thank you for continuing to mentor me and to provide safe spaces for myself. So thank you. And thank you for this platform and for the ability to continue to share space with you. So
you're so welcome. All right, everyone. That was our episode for today. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be in touch real soon. Bye.